What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys enjoy the video today. Today, we're going to go through the Australia versus Tongan game last night. 18-0, Australia get it done over the Tongan 13. Also, give you my live thoughts and reactions because I was at their game live in the flesh. I watched it over again this morning before I go to you guys and give you the reactions, but I want to give you my thoughts when I was watching it live and then my thoughts when I watched it all the way back and whether they kind of coincided with each other. Usually, when you watch the game live, you get to see the work rate of all the players and like that. I love to watch it that sort of side of things because we'll touch on a couple of players that worked themselves to a standstill in this game. And shout out to Tonga. Their defense was incredible in moments there. I thought there was spurts where our attack started to find itself a little bit, but there was a lot of moments for Australia's attack where it didn't throw a lot at Tonga as well, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on as well. But I want to give you my live thoughts, you know, the players that worked their asses off in the middle and that, but then watching the game back over and some of the more intricacies with the attacking sets and the attacking plays and how a couple players didn't really come together, but it kind of should have probably been thought about a little bit more coming into this game because I predicted this game being like a 30-18 sort of scoreline for Australia, but I probably didn't put in a lot of thought on like obviously the newer combinations of Mitchell Moses, you know, Tommy Dearden and Dylan Edwards, whether that was going to work, obviously mixed in with Harry Grant in that number 9 role, and very similar with Tonga as well, obviously having Lehigh Hopewati out at fullback, you know, Lolohea and Isaiah Katoa have played a little bit together in the test series and stuff like that, but when you have a new fullback there, some of the combinations and that side of things obviously took a little bit to get grips of, and obviously the first game of the Pacific Championship, that probably should have been thought about a little bit more, but we're going to go also through, first of all, I want to give you my Tongan thoughts, so coming into their next game in a couple of weeks' time against New Zealand Kiwis, and obviously we play the New Zealand Kiwis next week, so I want to give you some of my thoughts, some of the changes maybe we can make into that contest and whatever happens in the future to where, you know, maybe we see a little bit of a different lineup or something like that from the Australian Kangaroos. But first of all, I want to talk about the crowd that was out there. The Tongan fans are absolutely incredible. Like, you know, they're the nicest, most polite people in the world, but also they just love their rugby league football. They love their atmosphere. Every time that you heard, like, you know, the DJ obviously was given a mad list of like certain songs to play and that, and every time there was a little stoppage and play, songs came on, it was just all of them jumped up with their flags and that. It was an amazing atmosphere, and I cannot wait for like maybe in Australia versus Tonga Samoa. I missed the game last year. I wish I ended up being able to go to play, you know, that. I watched that last year with Samoa, but I'm sure it'll be a very similar sort of vibe. And these are Pacific nations, the Polynesian community, they just love their rugby league football, and it's so good to see that at Suncorp Stadium in Australia we finally get to see the culture get put on display, but also, you know, because 60% or it might be a little bit more than that these days now too, of the rugby league nation and the NRL is actually predominantly Pacific Islander descent, so it's good to see it get put on show. But the one thing I do preface, I really wanted Samoa versus Tonga sort of like test series, like a 3-game series, sort of like State of Origin. I feel like that's definitely the best way to grow the international game because there is a massive rivalry, as all the Polynesian community understanding that. Obviously, we need to like dip into that, like that tribalism, but also, you know, I feel like just the standard that these teams are getting to now, I do believe that needs to get put on show. But getting through the game, obviously, so my live thoughts and reactions, some of the players that I thought stood out in this game on the Australian end side of things, Harry Grant worked himself tirelessly all night. He was like the movement of the man, you could kind of see exactly why he is a step above like pretty much every hooker in the competition right now. He is the best hooker by far. And I feel like he was somewhat of a difference against Australia against Tonga, you know, in the 18-0. I feel like when we started play front foot footy, it started we like about ruck speed, which is what I kind of predicted into this game. We'll talk about some of the stats in our run meter rate and stuff like that. You know, Harry was causing a little bit of havoc there. You know, if we were playing second phase footy, usually it came between, you know, Harry Grant, you know, with some offloads and stuff like that. But defensively, you know, he was just bouncing left, right, and center, getting up. He is like, he just works so tirelessly out there in the middle. And he was definitely someone that I watched a lot of over the night. Other players that really stood out for me, Tommy Trbojevic live is like something to be seen, bro. Like he is so dominant running with the football in behind the ruck. He always finds his front if he doesn't get, you know, through the first tackle and make a massive line break. If he gets caught up, he usually finds his front, quick play to ball speed. He is a handful. Like there was a couple of moments there where we were attacking down that side, and I thought Moses Suli had an incredible night too. We'll talk about more of Moses Suli a little bit later on because he was actually one of my favorite performances for the Tongan 13. You know, he just looks a league above everyone else, and I do hope he gets a fresh bill of health because the best Tommy Trbojevic, you know, running out there could be the best player you know, in rugby league at the moment. Like some of the stuff he was doing out there, obviously scoring the first try for the Australian Kangaroos with the intercepts, but like just the work rate in behind the ruck against some of the biggest like forwards in rugby league at the moment, Adam Fanua Blakes of the world, even Felice Kafusi, he's got some massive shoulders on him. He'll definitely give you your licks. Obviously, Taniela Pasekas of the world, Olakau'Atu's, and we must talk about Olakau'Atu a little bit later on. But I thought they worked tirelessly. Isaiah Yeo, Paddy Carrigan, just incredible. Ruben Cotter, as soon as he got onto the field, like I feel like his footwork and just speed through the middle of the ruck really opened up a lot of things for Australia. But also Lindsay Collins taking his licks, but just continue to get up and continue to keep going. I thought he was incredible out there. I could name a couple of other bigger names. Obviously, Tommy Dearden, watching him live and watching how much running that kid does. Like he goes from left side of the field, right side of the field, obviously scoring the last try of the match on the opposite side of the field with that dummy half run. Like he just continues to turn up, but defensively is the biggest thing that you notice about Tommy Dearden. Some of the cover tackles he makes, some of the massive efforts he makes on both sides of the field. Like he is an incredible player to watch in that sense of the side of things. In the attacking side of football, there was moments where it didn't really click for him on that outside. I feel like combination wise, it probably is going to take a little bit of time before he finds himself with Angus Crichton and stuff like that. And that was noticeable live. But like just the work rate side of things of that is like you'll never see. Tommy Dearden's game is predicatedly built on just high work rate, be there all the time, and that's where like things will pay off for him, and end up doing that later on in this game where he end up scoring that try and stuff like that. But on the Tongan side of things, Olakau'Atu was a sight to behold there live on the field, and then watching it back again on TV and noticing like some of the things that he's doing on TV. That guy's an absolute monster. And watching him live, he's like size. I think it was the first time I've actually got to see like a manly player live. I think that was one of the sides me and Brody were talking about. It was one of the sides I haven't seen live in the last couple of years. So like I haven't seen Tommy Trbojevic live, stuff like that. And it was so good to see those boys live in the flesh in these sort of games here. But Olakau'Atu, seeing him live, seeing his frame, the way he moves, he's an athletic phenom. But defensively too, I feel like that was the best defensive side for Tonga last night when you had obviously Olakau'Atu, Moses Suli, and you know Daniel Tupou down at edge. I thought that was the strongest side overall for Tonga, and they all worked tirelessly for each other. And obviously you want to talk about the Olakau'Atu shot on Lindsay Collins. Like he was a scary, scary man out there. Another player that really stood out for me was Moses Suli. We did send a little bit of traffic down his end. He had to contend with Tommy Trbojevic, which we spoke about a little bit earlier on there. I thought he just turned up tirelessly tonight. Like he was incredible defensively. There was moments where Tommy started to find himself a little bit, but he was just shutting him down. I thought he was really, really good. Obviously in the attacking end of football, he got through his work rate, but I would have loved to see him get a little bit more, you know, one-on-one football earlier on. But then again, having to go up against, you had Zach Lomax that was putting in a lot of big effort plays there, and obviously Tom Trbojevic in front of him. I would say that obviously, you know, he still would have been a thing to handle out there, and I would have loved to see a little bit more football, but I can probably understand why he got shut down fairly early on. You know, especially when they're trying to spot up on Mitchell Moses. You probably would love to, you know, spot up Eli Katoa on Mitchell Moses more so than Olakau'Atu on Mitchell Moses, which happened a couple of times, more so than obviously going out the back to Moses Suli. So you can see sort of the game plan there, and I do feel like the majority of the time when the ball did go that way, too little here, probably like stunted a couple of things. Obviously had a couple of moments to forget. Obviously the big one, the intercept to Tommy Trbojevic. But there was moments in the game where he just gave early ball to Olakau'Atu, I think, or even Isaiah Katoa could have done that, you know, wheeling and dealing out there, gave it to Olakau'Atu, and Olakau'Atu just spotting up on Mitchell Moses, bang, straight over the top. So that side really, really impressed me. You know, and just thinking off the top of my head, other players, I thought Sione Katoa turned up tirelessly tonight. There were some moments there defensively I thought he held in fairly well. Shout out to Paul Alamonte with the massive test that he had against the Hammer on that edge. I thought like the Hammer live, you know, some of the steps that guy has, his strength up top and his balance is like something to behold. I've experienced the Hammer live a multitude of times, but every time we continue to watch him live, he's still just a firecracker, like waiting to happen. Like he just floats around everywhere. He looks like he's like a little bit nonchalant. And then out of nowhere, when he gets the ball, it's just like bang, something ends up happening. He either like tries to beat you on the outside. A lot of times he'll go 1-2 times out of the outside, and then bang, he'll come off this big left foot. And it's just a quick left foot, bang, straight back inside. So Alamonte had his hands full last night, but I thought Alamonte and Sione Katoa did really, really well with the best that they could. you know, out there. So those are the live sort of things I started to notice last night. If there was any players that you know, pointed out, maybe watching in a live broadcast that I've kind of missed out, you know, overall, make sure you comment them down below, you know, players I missed out that really worked tirelessly in the middle there. But I thought Olakau'Atu was incredible. I thought Olakau'Atu had some really nice moments last night defensively as well. He shut down on Tommy Dearden a couple of times, causing some errors. And we'll talk about a little bit of the Australian Kangaroos errors as well running through later on. But now watching this game over through TV, you start to see, you know, the combinations that were sort of breaking down a little bit more, because you get to see a little bit more of the, you know, the attacking sets play out. When you're watching it live, depending on where you're sitting in the stadium, we were like flush on with the goal line in the Tongan fan base section, close to the Tongan fan base section. So we got to see the back end of those plays, you know, if it was an attacking end, and that you don't really get to see the shape proper, but you see the ball get through hands and maybe your numbers get counted out a couple of times there. But when you're watching through the TV, you get to see those set plays play out a little bit more. And I want to touch on that first of all too. We'll touch on Tonga first of all. I do feel like, you know, watching it live, there was a couple of things I pointed out and it kind of reiterated itself, you know, watching it through the TV. So I do feel like that Olakau'Atu was trying his heart out there. I feel like maybe he was just over trying a little bit a couple of times there. Like his kicking game was definitely a little bit off last night. But when you have to handle the majority of the work rate there with that spine, you know, I don't like Havili at that number 9. I thought he had one of his better games maybe, but I just don't like the service from him from number 9. And there was a couple of moments last night where I feel like Olakau'Atu got some really slow ball out of ruck, and it just like the Australian defense was just up and sliding really early on. Our predicated like defensive game plan is up and slide. And so like we trust our middle forwards to tie in with our edge, and they just work rate. Like, as I touched on before, with the effort areas, when you have Ruben Cotters of the world, Lindsay Collins of the world, you got Paddy Carrigans, Isaiah Yo's, their feet don't stop moving. So when you're doing that sliding defense, those boys are tying in through the edge and then moving side to side. So we preferred to bring those big edge back rollers coming through the middle instead of having them directly one-on-one with Mitchell Moses on our try line. So a lot of those moments, you know, for the Tongan number 9, he needed to get it out fairly early on. Olakau'Atu to really create some space on that outside, and the best sort of game for Olakau'Atu is going deep into the line and creating space on the outside, playing more direct. But a lot of the times the Australian defense was shifting fairly early on them. They're like, you know, they're making up the numbers, so causing the Tongans to go back inside with, you know, Olakau'Atu going back under. Olakau'Atu's playing back under a lot of times last night that I noticed overall. So there wasn't a lot of times where they got to actually fan out fairly well. There was one moment later on in the game where they actually caught us out for numbers and it looked really, really nice. They almost came away with a try there. But I feel like that spine combination probably needs a little bit of work. I think the Latu Finus of the world would be really nice to have here. Obviously, unable to have Latu due to injuries and stuff. But I think in the future, I think it has to come to a point now where you have to move into your future for Tonga with some of your spine players. I think, you know, obviously you got Havili's a spiritual leader with that Tongan group there, but then like I thought that there was a lot of better moments when Sonny Luke came on. I feel like, you know, the ruck speed started to speed up a little bit for Tonga in the middle. And when you got those big like mobile forwards of a Adam Fanor, Blake and that, you don't want slow ruck speed, you know, the slow pass off the deck. You know, you want your forwards over the advantage line. I feel like that went missing a couple of times there with Havili in the middle. But then, yeah, talking on the spine, when you got Olakau'Atu and Tuilagi here, Isaiah was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It would have been nice to see Tui probably take a little bit of load off him, and I feel like that's what Latu could do. But again, we're talking about Latu, who's still fairly inexperienced in like top grade rugby league as well. So he probably would take a little bit of time to get up to speed in that grade. But I just feel like with Latu, he probably offers a little bit more at the moment than what Tuilagi here does. I could be wrong there, but obviously the experience of Tuilagi here probably helps. But everything that I know of Tui, obviously being a Warriors fan, Tui loves those moments. He's just like, the stutter step, he'll come off his left and right. I thought that his passing game was on somewhat like last night. Like he was like, you know, given the ball fairly early on and stuff. He didn't really stunt the sets going left or right. But I think that we probably needed him to probably get deeper with some sets there. Like, I don't know. It just, I feel like Isaiah was doing a lot of the heavy lifting last night, and when his kicking game definitely wasn't on for some periods of the game, you needed someone else to take over and maybe just bring some spark. And I thought that like Tui just wasn't the combination there for me. Good job there. So that's just my thoughts over on the spine. Like for Tonga for the future, I would have preferred to probably have Sonny Luke in that number 9 jersey and then bring like a Havili off the bench either as a middle forward or something like that, because defensively is probably where his best part of his game is, in my opinion. And obviously, you know, when he's running the football, he doesn't get put on his back. But I just think his dummy half work still is just a long way to go. And I don't think he's ever been a really good number 9, where I feel like Sonny Luke is a little bit more creative out of dummy half, a little bit erratic at times. So you saw that last night a little bit, but I also do feel like that, like there was moments where I got off my seat a little bit when I saw that Sonny Luke was going into that dummy half, and just knowing he was looking up and he could run with the football. He was getting forwards in that front foot, like the momentum rolling through just with having him there. Like I feel like that's probably the way to go. And in the future, obviously Latu, when he gets over injuries and that, I feel like he's definitely the future pairing to bring up with a Isaiah Katoa. Again, like I touched on, Isaiah didn't have his greatest game last night, but I want to give out a props to Isaiah Katoa as well. I thought defensively he worked tirelessly last night. There was a lot of moments where he was in the midst of some big try-saving actions. There was the hammer try early on, early on, where Hammer got over the line, and I think Isaiah Katoa made that first contact there. He got under the ball with Olakau'Atu. There's a lot of big moments where Isaiah actually stood up defensively, and I feel like that was the best thing to take out of this game for Tonga, is their defense and their grind was on last night. Like I thought that this game, the ruck speed was going to blow them out, and there was moments where you had Tommy Trbojevic coming back from the middle and it was just opening up, but Tonga just kept putting in, and when it got into their goal line defense, I thought they were actually really, really solid tonight, and that's something that's a building block to build onto when you come up against New Zealand in the future. You just got to get your combinations in order, because there was opportunities for you guys to go out there and put some points on the board. Just unfortunately, some of your combinations didn't come together last night. Completing at 80%, you know, a fairly good effort out there. Obviously, Australia only completing at 61%. We will touch on Australia a little bit more later on, having 50% of the possession overall last night. And you got yourselves into this decent field position. I think it just needed that little bit of extra touch, that little finishing ability, and it definitely would have made us shake a little bit. And to be fair, like it was 6-0 for majority of that game last night. And there was moments where, like, you know, if Tonga just went over, it could have totally shifted in Tongan's favor. But that's the thing. I think that's a little edge that Tonga just need to build on. And I still think that's just like, it's always been a thing with Tonga at the moment. It's the spine, and that just needs a little bit more work, in my opinion. But overall, an incredible game from those guys out there. Again, I want to touch on watching live and watching back, you know, through the TV. Moses Suli was getting through a ton of work last night. Some of the stats that he was getting through, I'm just pulling up the stats now while I've got him. 185 run meters. He topped the run meters there for Tonga last night. He also got for 77 post-contact meters, and also made 6 tackles last night with 1 missed tackle. The majority of their tackles coming on the opposite edge with Paul Alamonte, who actually got targeted a ton last night. 25 tackles made, and I did feel like that Tommy did, and definitely had a lot of the more ball in hand last night, and was going down that edge with trying to get Angus Crichton and the hammer into the game. And I thought that, like, both the Tongan edges did fairly well, but Moses Suli on the attacking end, some of the work rate he did out of the back end, but defensive work too. I thought that him and Olakau'Atu were really, really strong tonight, in my opinion, last night. Overall, obviously, I got to talk about Olakau'Atu. Watching that guy live and watching it back on the TV, I thought that he was absolutely tremendous. Like, he was an absolute steamroller when he had the ball in hand, but then when defensive efforts that were happening, like I think the last one that happened was the Tom Dearden try, where he was just cramping up, and I feel like just came over time, the amount of work that he got through. I was really impressed with Olakau'Atu last night, and I really thought that he stood out overall. Ended up running for 116 meters, 59 post-contact meters, 7 tackle breaks, led the tackle break count for Tonga last night. But on the defensive end, he ended up getting through 23 tackles, missed 4 tackles. Didn't notice any of those 4 tackles being missed at all, but definitely noticed a lot of the shots he did put on and some of the defensive efforts he put in last night. So shout out to those boys there. Overall, a solid hit out for Tonga. Again, those are the certain little things. I think that Keon Koloamatangi opened up a lot of, other than the error that he had fairly early on in the game. I did feel like when he came on the field, I feel like the ruck speed definitely opened up for Tonga and definitely made it a little bit more difficult for Australia, that had to do a lot of defense fairly early on in that first half as well. I do feel like that maybe you could run out there with a Jason Taumalolo up front and have Keon Koloamatangi in that 13. That probably opens up a little bit more of a better look there in the middle, in my opinion. But it's just also, I'll try to not take away a lot of the the spirit of that Tongan side as well. And that's why I kind of talk about with Havili, it's going to be tough to take him out of that side because I do feel like he's one of those spiritual leaders for Tonga overall. All right, lastly, we'll go talk about the Australian squad and my thoughts overall and a couple of changes that maybe we can make with that Australian squad, in my opinion. And this is like more predicated on what I watch it live and also what I watch back over on TV. That defensive effort from Australia last night, incredible. There was a couple of moments there where Tonga had the front foot. The momentum was rolling on. Did feel like there was moments where it was like, oh, they're going to crack us. But the only moment they really had where they nearly cracked us was definitely off that grubber kick where unfortunately Keon Kalamatangi ended up dropping the ball there. But I did feel like, you know, when the Tongans had the front foot and they were really rolling us through the middle, only happened a couple of moments in this game with Australia winning the overall run meters in this game with 1,900 comparatively to 1,400 of the Tongans, which is an interesting stat there. The post-contact meters also going away of Australia. But when Tonga had their front foot in the game, they had their momentum in the game, I thought that Australia defended really, really well there. There was a moment where they actually caught us out on the edge on numbers, which was one of the only moments really that they caught us out on numbers with their set piece on the side. That had open, I think it was Lehigh, end up creating the line break there. But shout out to Zach Lomax having that, you know, composure on the edge. He held his edge there. He was looking out of the line for Daniel Tupou. I think he had Moses Sully on that side. So he was kind of favoring those guys and really allowed that Dylan Edwards fill in the number there and really, you know, shut down that play. So defensively, I thought we were incredible last night. As I did touch on earlier on in this game, I thought Tommy Dearden worked so hard defensively last night. You know, all the boys, Cam Murray, I didn't really get a touch on Cam Murray, but he was incredible watching live as well. He was chopping blokes left, right, and center. Mitch Barnett, man, I was so happy to see Mitch Barnett go out there and just absolutely murder it. Like, I thought that he was in everything. I don't know whether it's just my Warriors bias and that, but I thought when he came on, he was chopping blokes left, right, and center. I felt like that he was just taking it to that Tongan forward pack, and he was one of my preferred players in that game. Like, looking at it, I was like, bro, like, get him in starting next week. Like, I just love to see that he just clicked into gear. And like, you know, when Mitch Barnett clicks into gear, this is what I've been watching as a Warriors fan this year. I thought that he was incredible. Some of the stats that he ended up with tonight, he ended up playing for 35 minutes overall, 123 meters with 33 post-contact meters. But his defensive effort last night was something that I really, really did enjoy. 17 tackles, a no miss, and it just felt like he was in so many more, like within that little period that he had. So I cannot wait to see more of, you know, Mitch Barnett coming against the Kiwis as well. Hopefully he gets a little bit more minutes. Like 35 is a fairly decent stint there with Ruben Cotter. I feel like that was a really nice moment for the Australian Kangaroos. I feel like that's where we found a lot of big moments. Paddy Carrigan was incredible last night, but and so Lindsay Collins. But I thought that when Mitch Barnett came out there, he just had that edge to him where he was like, you know, trying to like take blokes out. Like there was a moment in that game, probably wasn't the best defensive moment from him, getting out there in the line, pushing past like the defensive line at all, trying to put a shot on, and like, you know, Tonga kind of shifted early. But just seeing that, like, you know, against this massive forward pack that intimidated a lot of sides and that, he was trying to take it to the contest. And that's something I do appreciate as a Kangaroos fan, Australian fan overall. But like, he was incredible, I thought there. Again, I just want to touch on some of the strike players that we had. When we had ball actually gets them in really good positions, I thought the hammer was absolutely incredible, as I touched on early on. Tommy Trbojevic was really, really nice. Xavier Coates, some of the work he did out of his back end was really solid. Zach Lomax, his effort areas is probably the best thing to take out of this game. Still probably didn't have his greatest game overall, like had to end up with a couple of errors in this one, but I didn't notice a lot of those errors. I think a lot of them do come down to his kick chase and trying to get up in the air and bat the ball back and stuff like that. That usually happens for him in the contest, but still the effort areas in his game is the reason why he got to Australian Kangaroos, and it's still so confusing when he wants to go back into center, but I'm sure that's a video for the future overall. And lastly, talking about the spine and the connection and maybe some areas that I want to fix up on the Australian Kangaroo side, and maybe this could be a little bit controversial, but I think the one great attacking like set piece, set play that we end up having end up being Tommy Trbojevic coming off that center, coming back in and playing out the back in that fullback jersey. And it kind of throws off the question because I thought Dylan Edwards worked tirelessly last night. And again, like, he deserves that fullback jersey. He's worked so hard. But, you know, just as a Kangaroos fan, when I started to see, I think Tommy Dearden needs someone out the back that can really, you know, connect with him, get on the outside. Very similar to what like the Cowboys do with, obviously they got Scotty Drinkwater that slings it. Obviously, Scotty does predominantly his work down the right edge, you know, out the back of that halfback action. And Tommy Dearden does get a lot of flat football and like playing on the outside. But I feel like the best attacking play we end up having Tom Trbojevic come off that edge, play out in that little fullback position, create the extra number, bang, give it early to the hammer. It throws up that option again. Like, I probably don't want Tommy to get a lot of KMs in his like hamstrings and stuff like that at the moment. Obviously, it's still a worry with his injury history and that. But like, if Tommy was fit and ready and Tommy was written raring to go, I would throw up the little question of, would he be the fullback for the Australian Kangaroos? And there was moments in that game where I was like, if we had him at fullback, and like, I feel like, especially, we'll take that set play for example, when he came out the back of Tommy Dearden, watch it back and watch how Alamonte's, you know, positioning changes a little bit. When you got a big body that moves that well on the outside, you got to give him a little bit of like credit. So you got to, you know, I sort of noticed Alamonte's shoulders turn in, and that was as soon as, you know, Tommy just gave it off, and that was the little bit of space you give the hammer on the outside, and Hammer's just going to make that happen, scoring a try in the corner. Those are the moments there where I feel like I didn't see a lot out of Dylan Edwards. That could be a little bit more harsh on Dylan Edwards. A lot of it came on the, like, Mitchell Moses side, and I don't think Mitchell Moses had his greatest game out there. And a lot of set plays, you know, giving out to Dylan Edwards. Dylan didn't get himself in those really nice positions to really beat the number and create on the outside there. I feel like it is tough. I don't think it's a decision maybe we could make for the Kiwis game or anything like that, but just more so in the future, because I think, like a lot of people do agree, if Tommy Trbojevic is fit and raring to go, I really do believe that Tommy Trbojevic is the best fullback in this competition, like to talent wise and that. I feel like it's just his body. And I just want to throw out the question there. What does the Australian Kangaroos fans feel like? Again, it feels horrible taking away that opportunity from Dylan Edwards when he's just got it, and he well deserves it because his work rate's incredible. And again, last night, I didn't think that he looked out of it. I just really do feel like that our connection, and maybe it's more so on the halfback connection there of, you know, Tommy Dearden and Mitchell Moses didn't really click for me last night. You know, obviously Dylan Edwards still running for 170 meters, 32 post-contact meters. And this could be a little bit too early to even start discussing this in any sort of way, because I feel like defensively, Dylan Edwards was incredible. He was calling out numbers last night. Watching him work from the back end was really, really great to see. But in the attacking end, that little bit of spark, that little moment of having Tom Trbojevic sweeping out the back and just like having Alamonte, it's just clicking in my mind. I saw it live, just seeing Alamonte just turn in a little bit. And it was just those little things that we didn't see out of Dylan Edwards. And I don't know whether it was more so the positioning of Mitchell Moses, the way he was getting Dylan Edwards in there, or it was more of Tommy Trbojevic being Tom Trbojevic and just that athletic phenom that he is. He has to cause a little bit of indecisiveness with that defensive line to, like, do I turn in? Do I give it to Tommy? Because if he dummies and goes, he's going to get too much head of steam to get over the top of me. But if I don't and I push, I turn in, I'll give that early. You got players like the Hammer and that on the outside that are going to make me pay, and that's kind of how it turned out last night. But again, throw my hands up. I still believe that that's a really good backline lineup. I just think that the combination maybe of Mitchell Moses and Tommy Dearden didn't work to its highest potential. Maybe this is a little bit tougher to critique him after, you know, just one little like training session. Like, obviously they got that little bit of a camp before this game. It wasn't a lot of training going overall to really build a massive combination. I feel like a lot of the attacking play came off last night, Harry Grant and Tommy Dearden. And that's where a lot of this was happening. I did think that Angus Crichton probably had one of his poorer efforts games last night. There was some moments where Angus Crichton was like finding himself again. But I thought that overall that Mitchell Moses didn't really have the ball out. Like, it just, I don't know. It just felt like the attacking set pieces just weren't working to their full potential. But again, this is the first game against Tonga. Maybe I should credit Tonga's defense a little bit more, because honestly, I thought defensively they were really solid out there. Those are just a couple of food for thought sort of thing I do want to chuck out there. The last thing I really do want to chuck out is we need to get Matt Burton a little bit more time. And when he came out on that 13, I thought his body was big enough to actually defend in the middle there. He's definitely a lot bigger than what you think he is, especially watching him live and seeing him like shoulder to shoulder with Paddy Carrigans of the world and, you know, Angus Crichtons of the world, stuff like that. He comparatively can defend in the middle and that. I just wanted to see a little bit more of that, you know, different kicking threat too. Maybe that's just a little bit more personal thing, as like I wanted to see a Birdo bomb in Suncorp Stadium, but 9 minutes, I do feel like that it would have been nice to see a little bit more out of him in the middle. Maybe it's just more, that's more of a harsher comment, just seeing that You know, I probably would have loved to see a little bit more combination. But when you got like a team that has Paddy Carrigan that can play long minutes, you got Lindsay Collins that can play long minutes, you got Mitch Barnett that can play long minutes, Ruben Cotter that can play long minutes, it does make it tough to really find that change for him there. Maybe it could have came with like maybe Dylan Edwards coming off, Tom Trbojevic pulling to the fullback and having Matt Burton to a center. I'm not too sure, but I just would love to see a little bit more Matt Burton, in my opinion, last night. But overall, in all the other areas of the game, I thought like our forward pack, you know, handled it really well. We were finding run meters fairly easily, as I did touch on before, about 1,900 run meters last night comparatively to Tonga with 1,450. I thought that we found a lot of great ruck speed from the middle. We set the platform, but 60% completion rate is definitely not good enough. And a lot of that did come off our spine and our like connections out to the back end. I do think that will grow. That'll get better for sure. But in this game, it did lack and did fall behind, in my opinion. But guys, make sure you comment below your thoughts overall. An incredible game to watch live. Again, shout out to the Tonga fans out there. Just like an amazing fan base. Like, you know, even like on the like train ride home, talking to some of the Tongan fans and just having a laugh and that. Like, it's just like, it's such a positive thing for rugby league right now, seeing the Polynesian nations and the Pacific nations out there getting put on the pedestal, and hopefully we can continue to grow through that. But Peter V'landys, get Samoa and Tonga for a 3-game test. I feel like that's the best way to grow this international game. We need to see the tribalism. I want to see Suncorp Stadium packed out with Tongan and Samoan fans, especially when the DJ is playing certain things and they're all getting up and dancing and stuff, throwing their flags up in the air. Like, that would be a sight to behold. It's something I did miss from previous years when we did have the Tongan Samoan tests in those representative rounds, stuff like that. I thought they were some of the best games to watch because you saw the tribalism come out, not just in that football field, but with the fan base. But also there's a lot of love out there too. So comment down below your thoughts overall, guys. An incredible game to watch in that. I cannot wait to go watch the Australian Kangaroos do it again in Suncorp. I cannot wait to watch more football down at Suncorp as well. But guys, I'll leave it up to you. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts overall. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Take it easy. Peace out.